Hey, what's up guys? Coach Dino here. Today we're talking back pain. This is Dino's Dozen, the 12 exercises you can do preceding any heavy training day, any compound lift day, any barbell complex, in order to open up the hips and loosen up the glutes and hamstrings to help you hit the full range of motion on those exercises. So there's two leading causes of back pain, and when we look at back pain or any joint pain, you have to look on either side of the joint. So it tends to be something above the joint or below the joint, either a tightness or some kind of muscle imbalance that causes this pain in that joint. So when we look at lower back pain, one of the major culprits is the glutes. The second culprit would be the hamstrings. If these muscles are really tight, it's going to pull back on the lumbar spine and it's going to cause some pain, especially if you're lying down at the end of your day. You're going to find that your back's really achy. So you're going to need a couple tools for this routine. Most gyms have them. If they don't, you can pick them up pretty cheap. But the first tool is my foam roller here. So I like a nice hard foam roller. This was a gift from a client. But you can get this at any sport medicine center, any physio, chiro, that kind of stuff. But usually it's a hard tube with a nice soft outer shell. If you can't get that, this is from, I believe, Walmart. It's just I think it's like a yoga roller. Works great, except it's not as rigid, so it can't really grind in as good. And then we have a lacrosse ball. If you can't get a lacrosse ball, you can use a tennis ball wrapped in tape, or a cue ball or something like that. But something hard. I like a lacrosse ball because it's grippy. It sticks, okay, so you can really grind it in there. And the last thing you'll need here is some bands. Just any kind of band for this. We're just using it as a tool to get leverage. And the last couple things here is just a chair, and then I have a bike off to the side here, just for my warm-up. So get warmed up, get loose, and then we'll get over these 12 exercises. Okay, now you're warmed up. These exercises start from static, kind of stretching, myofascial release type exercises, and they gradually get more active, more dynamic as we get closer to starting our actual training session. So we're going to start off light, and we're going to work out and get a little bit more intense as we go. So the first three exercises are grouped into one, and it's the myofascial release for the legs. So we're going to start by releasing our hamstrings, and you want to do each one for about 30 seconds nice and slow. You want to start right up at the glutes there. Put your weight on the hamstring. You can cross the leg over, and you just roll it back. Nice and slow. You're just trying to grind any knots that you find and kind of sit in there like a nice trigger point and just grind it out. So that's the first one. The second one, after the hamstrings, you're going to roll to the inner thigh. So you're going to kind of straddle it. And again, you're going to start low at the knee or high at the hip. And you're going to roll those adductors and grind them all out, about 30 seconds. Nice and slow. Again, just getting some release there. And last one is that IT band. Tends to get really tight in athletes especially, but also if you spend a lot of time sitting, it can also get tight. So you're going to cross it over. And again, you're going to roll it out. Again, nice and slow. Just grind it out about 30 seconds. This one tends to be really painful. Just grind it out nice and slow. Okay, so that's the first one. Myofascial release for the legs. Okay, so now that we got the legs kind of loose, we're going to stretch out the hips, the low back, glute med, that kind of stuff. So you're going to try and be square like a tabletop. You're going to kind of tighten those abs up. Get that pelvis kind of in neutral position. You're going to bring your knees together. And you're going to lean to one side. Nice and slow. And then you're going to kind of sit back. Get that glute stretch. Just like that. And you do the other side. You're going to do maybe 2 or 3 long sets for each side. Okay, next one. You need that lacrosse ball. Again, it's grippy so it doesn't move around, it kind of sticks, and then it's hard because you're putting a lot of your weight on it. You're going to kind of put it in that glute medial aspect there, where you get that rotation at the hip. You're just going to grind it This one really hurts. You're going to find those bits that just kind of really hurt. You're going to sit on them. You know, breathe out as you sit. Grind around a little bit more. I'm going to go probably a couple minutes per glute. This is probably one of the most important ones to help with that back issue. It's really just loosening up those glutes. So 2 minutes aside. You're going to sit kind of on the edge of the chair. I want those hips under you. Then tighten those abs so you're up in a neutral position. You're going to cross that foot over, above the knee, kind of on the quad here. And you're going to push that arm down onto that knee. Keep the back upright, keep the shoulders back, chest up. Just breathe out as you push. Just kind of let it down. Remember to breathe. I'm going to go for about 30 seconds and do 2 to 3 reps per leg. Once you've done both legs, what I want you to do then is grab the knee and kind of hug it. And what you're going to do is you're going to stretch that glute at the same time. So you're pulling kind of back a little bit into the chair and just exhaling. Again, we're releasing some of that tension in the glute max there, glute med area, and then loosening up that lower back. We're working on that range of motion at the hip. I want you on your back, get those shoulders back nice and relaxed. Okay, you're going to have those abs kind of half contracted, about 20%. Right, what that does is that makes sure that the hips are kind of rotated into neutral position. You're going to extend one leg. The other leg is going to come up, out, and then back down. You're going to make circles like this. Okay? If you get it clicking, okay, you're probably going a little bit too wide. That's outside your range of motion. So work it within your range of motion. Try to have that neck relaxed and just work about 12 repetitions one way and then back up the outside, down the inside. Again, same thing. What you'll find with this is if you have tight hips, you might get a little bit of cramping kind of in the groin area as the hip flexors work a little bit harder. But try to stay within your range of motion. Okay. Next one, you're going to bring your knees up, kind of into a crunch position almost. And what we're going to do is we're going to work the SI joints. Okay, so we're going to move our hips and our low back in order to kind of free everything up and make sure we have full range of motion. If you're doing this right, there should be no pain. It's kind of just flexing a joint, because you got to remember that the pelvis is a bunch of different bones and they all kind of move. And they should move relatively freely. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those hips and we're going to bring them up. And we're going to put that low back on the ground. Then you're going to bring those hips down and lift that low back up. Then you're going to rock the pelvis, just like that. So nice and slow. Okay, there should be no pain. You're going to rock the pelvis back and forth. And again, you can do 12 to 15 repetitions of these.
Good.
Okay, so we're back in that hands and knees position. Our spine is neutral. We're going to look down. This one's called the scared cat or scaredy cat or scared cat stretch. They use it a lot in yoga. What I like about this one is you can get kind of a lower lat stretch as well as an upper glute max stretch at the same time. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull that pelvis in. Okay, you're going to pull your abs up. You're going to get really high here. You're going to exhale. And then you're going to sit back. Nice and slow. So you get that nice stretch through the lats, through the low back, through the hips, through the glutes. Okay, bring it back. You can do this about 3 to 5 times. Make sure you're always focusing on your breathing, keeping that kind of neutral, reset to neutral spine every time. And then all the way up, and then sit back again. So from scared cat, you're going to open your knees a little wider. Trying to maintain that neutral position of the spine there. Kind of hips under you a little bit. What I want is I want those feet pointed out. And I want those heels pressing to the ground. Okay, so you're going to press those heels to the ground. And from this position, I want you to sit. And as you sit, try to get those knees farther apart. Okay, and you're going to sit deep all the way back. You might find that your hips are tight. Try to push those heels down to the ground. and sit all the way back. Once you get to a point where you're not moving anymore, try to take a deep breath in and then exhale and sit a little bit farther back into it. Okay, so if you trained with me before, this is one of the ones I like to do before my squats. It really gets the hips open, kind of activates the glutes, and then really reinforces that neutral spine position in terms of getting that squat technique down. So what you do is you usually start standing up, and you have your feet about a foot away from the wall, kind of toes kind of pointed out a little bit. You're going to sink down against the floor, keeping your low back pressed tight against the wall. Get your chest back, and then you're going to press those knees kind of out nice and light. What I do want is I want external rotation at the knee, but also at the ankle. So I want you kind of turning your heel in and your toe out without moving your foot. And then you're going to press those knees out. Make sure you're breathing. Exhale. Inhale. Sinking low. Hey, because remember, a squat, you should be able to squat to this position and then stand up if you have a full range of motion at the hip and at the knee, as well as at the ankle. And one of the limiting factors for most people isn't necessarily the knee flexibility there. It's usually a range of motion issue at the hip or at the ankle. And a lot of people tend to fix the hip issue, but they don't address the ankle issue. So you'll find that they'll be doing squats kind of with their heel on a block or on a plate or whatever in order to raise their heel. And that's because their tendon, their calf tendon or their calf itself doesn't have that full range of motion. So I like this one because it can kind of get us to plant in position, open up, and help give that range of motion at the heel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one quad on the foam roller, and the other one's going to go beside me. Okay, now some people are flexible enough that they can reach up and they can grab that toe, they can pull it back. And then what I want is I want you to drop that hip down into the mat, okay? So we get an elongation of the quad here, but we also get that hip flexor lengthening. After you've done that, you can kind of bring it back down a little bit. And again, reach up, grab, and then lengthen. And kind of press that hip down into the ground. What I like to do, if I have a band around, is get it around that toe, pull it up over the head, and then jam that hip into the mat. So we can get that hip there nice and loose. Okay, so you're going to hold this maybe 30 seconds a piece and do whichever variation works for you. You can do 2 to 3 repetitions per side. You're going to get into like a lunge position. It's called runner's lunge. And what you want first is you want that leg straight under you, okay? And you want to be square to the hips. You want that knee 90 degrees and that foot kind of directly under that knee. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to reach this foot just in front of that knee. Once you got that, you're going to put a little bit more weight on that side and kind of set yourself into the ground. You're going to squeeze the glute, so the butt cheek or whatever leg is back, so it's nice and tight. What that does, it tightens up the hip and the quads here. So those big adductor muscles, and you're going to tighten that up nice and good, okay? So the abs are engaged, everything's tight. Second thing, you're going to take that foot in front of you and you're going to pull your body weight forward. That's going to lengthen all those muscles that you've just tightened. Okay, so you pull it nice and tight. You're going to reach up to the sky. Okay, you're going to lean to the opposite side. Then you're going to turn away. Okay, it's like you're wringing out those muscles. A lot of times you get a nice release in the back and the glutes as well, but it's a really good one for the hips. Okay, so same deal on the other side, be a little quicker. Okay, so get that foot just in front of the knee. You squeeze the opposite glute. Okay, so you squeeze that nice and tight. You're going to pull the body weight forward. You're going to reach up to the sky. You're going to lean to the opposite side. And then you're going to turn and twist. Okay, so I like to do this 20 to 30 seconds a piece. 1 or 2 times. Get nice and loose. Last thing, we've kind of gone from static to dynamic movements. So we started off not moving too much, doing some release techniques, some trigger point, that kind of stuff. Now we're getting into more dynamic movements. last thing on the list is mountain climbers. And I like this because we can open up the hips and warm up that range of motion before we get into things like lunges, squats, cleans, snatches, whatever you guys are doing for your routines. Or if you're just, somebody who's a little tight, sitting all day, this kind of ramps up that program, gets you ready for your workout. So what you're going to do is you're going to adopt that push-up position, okay? And depending on your flexibility, you're either going to bring your knee right up to the outside, drop the hips, or you're going to bring that knee up to the inside. Okay, so you're going to bring up, drop the hips, other side, drop the hips, up, drop the hips, drop the hips, just like that. Okay, not too fast, but we're just bringing it up. Trying to keep that back square. And again, that kind of gets that range of motion where it needs to be, gets that heart rate up, so we can now progress into our working sets, squats, lunges, whatever it is. Okay, so that's it. That's Dino's dozen. That's 12 exercises that you guys can do to kind of help with that lower back pain by improving flexibility in the glutes, mobility at the hips, and then range of motion at the knee and ankle. If you got any questions, please just leave some questions in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe, like, share it with your friends, and give me some ideas for kind of where my next video should go. But thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully this helps with your back pain, and we'll see you guys in the gym.